It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live and in color. Woo! Welcome to the big show. Hope you guys all had a great Easter and a happy Passover and a great weekend. I got a lot of rest this weekend, so I was feeling pretty chipper when I went to bed last night and woke up this morning and felt like a truck hit me and thought it's because we went to two Passover Seders, one on Friday night, another one on Saturday night, got home at like 2:30 in the morning from each of them, but slept really late, like 10 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday, which is really, really late for me. And woke up this morning and thought, well, it's just got to be lack of sleep. But no, in fact, I am getting a cold or sick or something. I feel like crap. So I took some Advil and then bit my tongue. And I have a chunk of the backside of my tongue missing right now. So if I'm talking like this today, you will know why. Hello to everybody in the chat room. There's Adriana, Amanda, Patty Boss, Russell, Everest Smile, Alexander Fox, Jesse, William Andrew, Gary White. Wow, the gang is here. Okay. I am wearing a tie for today's episode. Something I don't think I've ever done in like 4 years of doing these, but Susan Koch, one of our esteemed screeners, just a very beloved member of our A&R team, was just out of the country, a couple of different places for like a month or something. And she came back, saw her in the hallway this morning, and she gave me this awesome tie with little taxis on it. So I couldn't resist but to wear the tie for today's episode. So for those of you who've never seen me in a tie, today's the day where you do. Patty Boss loves my red shirt. This shirt, by the way, is from like 1984. I've had it that long. When I buy something, I only buy stuff I really love, and I hang on to it for a long, long time. So today's show is why haven't you succeeded yet, or why haven't you succeeded with your music yet? I know I've got like 1,500 words of notes here. I hope I stuck with the topic, but before we get into that, I want to let you know a couple things. Number one, today's show was largely, I was going to do how long does it take to get a deal, but I got the nicest thank you note from Matt Vandero today. Or no, I got it on Thursday, I think, of last week, along with a letter. And when I read this stuff, I went, you know, this guy he's my hero. This is a guy who hasn't been a member all that long, and he's becoming successful, I don't know if I'd say rather quickly. It's not like he joined last week and all of a sudden is making $1 million a year. But thinking about Matt really inspired this show today. Kind of the flip side of what Matt is. So there you go. And we're going to start the top of the show today. Whoops, dropped my trusty pen. Going to start today's show off listening to a piece of music so that I don't break my rhythm when I'm delivering this awesome 1,500 words. SHP10 says I could spill food on that and still look good. Yep, and I would be the guy to do that. Spilled coffee in bed this morning. So it's been that kind of day all day today. Anyway, so let's have a listen. And we're going to check out the song, and don't comment while it's playing. There's Scott Hansen. Tonight's Taxi TV menu is vegetarian lasagna, our summer salad, homemade focaccia, and a glass of Chianti. Now, remember, Scott, it is Passover. And for those of us of the Jewish faith, we have to eat unleavened bread for like the next, I don't know, it's like 4 or 5 more days left of that. So my wife actually makes lasagna using matzah, and I gotta say, it's really, really good. So try cooking that in your kitchen someday. Anyway, we're going to listen to a song which is called To Be There For You, And the person who submitted this song would love to know if this is broadcast quality or not. So let us have a listen to Be There For You and determine if it's broadcast quality.
I could make just one wish come true. I wish that I could spend my whole life with you. 'Cause baby, you see that one on earth to me is true. To be there for you, to be there for you. What else can I do to be there for you? If I could go anywhere on earth at any time in history, what's it worth? In no place or time is when I'd rather be than to be there for you, to be there for you. What else can I do to be there for you? I'm on your side. You won't be denied. The way you hide will do. To be there for you. From the start, in the sky, out there, that would grant me my wish, but only a flame. Put it out to me, and I'll be all my needs. I have to be there for you, to be there for you. What else can I do to be there for you, to be there for you, to be there for
All right, that was called To Be There For You. Okay. Well, Scott Hansen says, it's okay to tell them who this is, Michael. I can take the critiques. Pretty obvious. It's Scott Hansen himself, and that was by pure luck. He had no idea that he was going to get played today. I was given 3 from Nick. Nick is training a new gentleman who joined the staff about a week ago, maybe 10 days ago. His name is Matt, and Matt is going to be taking over the production of the show duties in another week or so. So we got 2 guys on the other side of the wall today, and they gave me 3 songs, and they said pick one, and this one was first, so I picked it. So good job, Scott. I mean, technically, yeah, it's broadcast quality. The engineering is good, the playing is good, the mix is good. The vocal is well executed. By the way, I noticed if again, context is everything in broadcast quality. Okay, so if this were being considered by a music supervisor for a show that takes place today and is a show that is, let's say, on the CW, and it's kind of a 20 something skewed show, and the music supervisor, there's my bit tongue music supervisor, needed something that was appropriate for that, they might deem this not broadcast quality for their needs for that show. But from a technical perspective, yeah, it's got the vocals well performed. The guy sounds a little, is that you singing, Scott? The guy, if that is you, sounds a little bit like Steve Perry from Journey. A higher register, nice clear tone to his voice. But the song also, because of the melody and his voice and stylistically, it feels like it dates back to mid 80s, maybe late 80s. Um, so that might take it out of contention for some stuff. Then again, if somebody was doing a scene or a film or a TV show and they had a scene that dated back to that time period and they needed a piece of music that was for that, this could play really well. So from a strictly technical perspective, the engineering, production, the playing, by the way, I'm fooled more often than not these days, but I'm assuming that that was a real drummer and real players on that thing. Let me know, Scott, in the chat room if you would. I liked what the drummer was doing. He felt like he was into it. He had a couple of really cool turnarounds, and my hat's off to the engineer because I happened to notice that I really liked the snare sound and the tom sound. I thought there was enough bass, that the bass and the drums had a good relationship. The only thing from a mix perspective is almost more of an arrangement thing, the guitar part. I like the guitar part, but at times it could have been doing half as much. It was in a pretty high register, fairly high up on the neck, doing kind of a thing, and there were times where that kind of stepped on the vocal a little bit. And I heard some background vocal things. I couldn't write this stuff down fast enough, but if I remember correctly, in the chorus, especially in the vamp of the song, that there was some counter background vocal parts that I felt the lead vocal would have been better served by having harmony parts doing what the lead vocal was doing along with it, rather than the counter stuff. Although maybe a line or two would have been okay, but it seemed like it was there long enough for me to notice and go, "Ooh, felt a little like it stepped on or a little conflicting with the vocal part." So there you go. Those are my thoughts. Finally got one heard there, Scott. Yay! And I look forward to the gefilte fish lasagna as soon as you whip up a recipe for that one. So there you go. That was our song for the day. Thank you to all who submitted. Like doing that. Okay. So yes, Robbie Hancock is telling Matt Vanderbo that today's show was inspired. Matt, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that handwritten note along with this awesome typed out letter. And I'm going to read this at the end of today's show. And I feel a little guilty, actually. I was working on this late last night, like 11:30 p.m. was when I started really writing this out. I'd sketched out some notes during the day, started writing it late at night, wasn't sure that I was liking the tone of it. But I'd like to preface everything I'm going to say on today's show with there are no absolutes. We all know this, but I'd like to remind us there are exceptions to everything. So much of the stuff I'm going to talk about today, generalizations, but with few exceptions, sadly. These generalizations are based on me being in the music industry for 40 years, and during that time, I've met just countless musicians who would tell you that they have not been successful. A lot of musicians think that the only form of success is big success, like I got a major label record deal. I had a record that charted. I sold millions of units, and now I'm flying around on a private jet, and I'm just rich as hell. And if you haven't accomplished that, that somehow you're a failure, in quotes. So many musicians seem to think that there's only one type of success. And I don't think that it's an either or situation, that you're a big success or you're a big failure. Success comes in all shapes and all sizes, and it generally comes in increments. It's pretty rare. I mean, yeah, sure, every now and then we think we hear about an overnight success, but we all know that when somebody, appears to be an overnight success, that little bit further down the road, we find out that they've been at it for 10 or 15 years before they became an overnight success. They appear to be an overnight success because we just met them, we just heard about them. Um, but it comes in increments. It usually starts out with some failures, and then, in terms of a taxi member, I didn't get stuff forwarded. I submitted, I didn't get stuff forwarded. And then I started taking the advice of the screeners, and I did get some forwards, and then eventually I got something signed by a library, blah, blah, blah. It's a ladder. For some people, success might be getting just a few placements of their music in TV shows. For others, it's earning their entire living from doing a combination of things that are music related. I know so many members that give guitar lessons or vocal lessons or piano lessons or engineering and production lessons. They may engineer and produce stuff for other people in their area. Nowadays, people are known to produce stuff for friends of theirs or clients that are all over the country or all over the world, using the internet and sending files back and forth. Some people might define success as getting just one song in a TV show. You've heard me tell this story before, but I'm going to repeat it again because we've got a lot of new viewers. Years ago, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, we had a taxi member that got something on a TV show. I can't remember what it was on, but it may have been the only forward or the only placement that the gentleman ever had. And he called me up afterwards and said, I have not had a relationship with my teenage son in years. In so many words, we can't stand being under the same roof. The kid hates my guts, doesn't even talk to me. No. Well, that night he gathered the whole family around, and they watched the show and heard the dad's music on the show. And afterwards, the son came over to him and wrapped his arms around him, gave him a super, super tight hug, and tearfully said, "Dad, I've never been more proud of you in my entire life." And that got them talking again. It was kind of a breakthrough moment. I know it sounds like an episode of Oprah, doesn't it? Maybe that was the only thing he ever got placed on a TV show. That certainly was a success in that, number one, it was on a TV show. Number two, it brought his son back into his life. And boy, what greater success could he have than that? And now I've come to learn it's not just that guy's kid. It's all teenagers, folks. All of them. Anyway, for other people, success might be just making a few hundred or a few thousand extra dollars. Maybe they've got a full-time gig. Maybe they're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and they can't spend that much time in their music. But even working 10 or 20 hours a week has given them the chops that over time they started getting some forwards from Taxi, and they got stuff placed in a library. Lo and behold, they got something on a TV show. Maybe they made an extra $2,251 last year that they didn't make before. That's got to feel like $1 million to them, because it is an incremental form of success, and it's all, it's relative. So success isn't only defined in the old paradigm that those of us who are my age, we all grew up in that golden era of classic rock in the mid-'70s. And success used to be defined as you either had a record deal or you didn't. You had a record that blew up on the charts or you didn't. People used to laugh at me and laugh at Taxi. Oh, all you guys do is get people filming TV deals. Well, that certainly is considered success by today's standard. So last night, I was contacted the other day by an old friend of mine. I haven't seen this guy in probably, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years. It's been a long time. And he and I spent about an hour on the phone last night, and he's a musician. He's also a videographer and an editor at a very high level, really knows what he's doing. And I said to him, man, I'm guessing that your income has been decimated by the fact that anybody with an iPhone and an iPad can now shoot and edit a TV show pretty much. Has that hurt your business? Because this guy had like a 3-car garage that was turned into a video shoot stage and had like a nice audio console in there and real cameras and a cyclorama and great lighting, the whole deal. And I said, is that part of your life, that business of yours, been decimated because of the technological changes that have occurred in the last decade or so? And he said, oh, yeah, absolutely. I barely make any money doing that anymore. And I said, well, what do you do to feed your family? And he said, I got to be honest with you. I make $75,000 a year playing a guitar. I think he plays guitar. Maybe it's keyboard vocal, guitar vocal, whatever it is. He's got a solo singer-songwriter gig, and I'm guessing he mostly does covers, playing at a hotel in Arkansas. So 75 grand a year playing a steady solo gig at a hotel in Arkansas. That is certainly a form of success. So I applaud those people. But for many others, many, many, many other people that I have met in the 40 years that I've been in the business, they have a belief that they've failed if they didn't get a record deal and they didn't become a rock star. I say that failure is what you believe failure is, that you define failure. Failure doesn't define you. The world doesn't really define failure. It's all relative to you in the context of your life. So you define what failure is to you. And where do most people get that image of what failure looks like? Most musicians, this whole thing is about musicians, by the way, just in case you didn't know. In every town, every city, every community, every little nook and cranny of the musician world, there are always the old salts, the guys who've been around the block. They've been doing this for decades. And those are the guys that the younger musicians look up to. Those are the guys that even their peers, some guys are just, they're that studly that other musicians tend to follow them, believe them, look up to them, listen to what they say. And whatever they say becomes truth. And I've met a lot of those guys. I remember giving a speech in Philadelphia, probably back in the mid-90s. And after, I think I did it at a recording studio, and afterwards I probably went out with 20 or 30 people who were at the gig. And they were all like bowing down to this one guy. He showed up at the restaurant or bar we were at, and everybody's like, "Ooh, look, Bob is here." Bob was clearly an influencer. He's what I think Seth Godin, one of the marketing gurus that I've enjoyed reading over the years, calls a sneezer. Somebody that when they sneeze, whatever they're sneezing out rains down on a lot of people and influences them, for better or for worse. So those old salts, those influencers, other people listen to them, and frankly, many of them, because they are older and they've been at this for a very long time, they're angry. They're angry because in their mind they've failed. They haven't achieved that old paradigm of, look at me, I got a record deal. How many times have you heard somebody say, "Oh yeah, I was in a band and we were that close, man. It's like my sister used to go out with this guy who worked in the art department at Atlantic Records, and he got our tape to a guy in the A&R department, and the guy in the A&R department, flew out and checked us out, and we were that close to a deal, and then that guy lost his job and we didn't get the deal, blah, blah, blah." And they get, I understand it, I'm not putting them down, but they get bitter and angry over time because it's something that they've wanted. They've always had this image up here of what they want their life to be like. And that's good. We should all have a clear vision. If you can't see it, you can't get to it. You can't accomplish it if you can't see it. So, but some of these guys are angry and they become kind of poisonous because they are in a position of influence. They influence so many other musicians to believe that if they don't accomplish that super high level of success, if they don't get the major label deal, if they don't sell 1 million records, if they don't have a radio hit, then they're a worthless piece of crap and they've failed. So why do people listen to them? If they're so frickin' smart and they know all the answers, wouldn't they be successful? Yet people do listen to them. But even by their own admission, their own definition of success and failure, they've failed. So why would anybody take advice from them? I mean, I feel for them. I understand it. And I'm not saying they're terrible, evil, horrible people, but you want to follow a leader. You want to follow in the footsteps and model people who have been successful at whatever it is that you want to do, not people who have failed at what you want to do. So in the end, these guys blame their lack of success on external forces rather than looking inward. They blame their failure on the industry. Oh yeah, the record industry. What a bunch of jerks, that work at record companies. Those evil bastards. I'd never sign with a major label. They're just a bunch of corporate guys and a bunch of suits, and even if you sign with them, they're going to rip you off and take advantage of you. So they kind of use that as one of their excuses for not being successful. It's, who would want to sign a major label deal anyway? But do you really believe that if somebody walked up to, come on, we all know that guy, right? If somebody walked up to that guy, that angry kind of, I hate to use the word has been, but somebody who's been trying to do it for a long time and has failed, certainly by their own standard. If somebody walked up and said, "Hi, I'm the vice president of a major label. I saw you play a gig Friday night. I think you're awesome, and I would like to offer you a deal." Do you think that they'd say, "Screw off, buddy. I have no desire to be signed to, Atlantic Records or Columbia or Universal"? No, they'd sign that deal in a minute. They blame it. They blame their lack of success on the gatekeepers. Because, of course, their music is great and they're great, and the gatekeepers weren't smart enough to recognize their genius and how incredibly wonderful their music is. So they blame gatekeepers. Then they heard about all the, as the paradigm started to shift and the internet started to blossom. These same guys, the miscreants, for lack of a better word, heard about all these amazing new ways to get their music out there to millions of people. And the internet was going to level the playing field for everybody and democratize the music industry. We're all on equal footing. That you, that little independent musician, can use the internet just as easily and inexpensively and effectively as a band that's on a major record label. So we've all got a chance of getting our music heard. They had the same tools to reach out to millions of people that the big major label acts had, but they didn't need the money and the marketing clout that the labels had because everything was created equal on the internet, right? Nobody, and frankly, there's some truth in that. There's a lot of truth in that. I watched my teenage daughters. They don't care if an act is signed to a major label. They don't even care if the act has had a radio hit or not. If they discover something on YouTube, they love it or they don't. It just doesn't matter. They don't even remember the names of the acts or the names of the songs. They just know that they love it. And that's kind of cool. So there is something to be said for the democratization of music on the internet. So these people, the so-called angry old dudes or dudettes, don't want to be a sexist about this, they put their music on mp3.com. Remember mp3.com? When was that? Like late 90s probably, early 2000s. mp3.com. They put their music up there. Everybody put their music up there. Everybody thought that they were going to have their lives changed because anybody could put any number of songs up there and everybody all over the world could hear them. And certainly if everybody heard their music on mp3.com, that they would be discovered and the public would love them. Nobody thought about how they were going to monetize that and make any actual cash from it, but they thought that they would become famous using this big internet platform. Well, they didn't. Big surprise. So they weren't successful. they failed. And their excuse was that there were so many bad musicians on mp3.com, so much crap that people had to filter through, that the fans didn't have the patience to sift through millions of songs to find them. And of course, it was mp3.com's fault that they failed. Some even blamed the public. The public has no taste. Maybe the public doesn't have good taste, but they like what they like. They're entitled to like what they like. They might think we don't have good taste. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion. So then those same people that have been working at this for years and had given up on the concept or the idea of a major record deal and getting rich and being successful with their music in that way, they decided to put their music on MySpace, which started out, wasn't first it was Friendster, then it was MySpace, and MySpace wasn't originally just about music, but kind of in the first year or two became mostly about music, and they put their music up on MySpace, which quickly became the de facto website for independent musicians, seemingly overnight, and millions of people went there every day, and musicians were always busy adding their friends and fans, and they plugged their music and they plugged their shows. Yet, for some mysterious reason, yet once again, nobody flocked to their MySpace page. Nobody bought their music. Nobody came to their shows. And I can't tell you how many times I heard these angry people blame MySpace, that MySpace, it was MySpace's fault. Here's the number one reason I heard, was because it loaded too slowly, which it did and still does, by the way. The music fans gave up and quit looking for new artists. And once again, those grumpos felt that their failure was that they were robbed of their success because of MySpace's failure to have web pages that loaded quickly enough. So there you go. You grab a swig. By the way, this week's episode, of course, is brought to you by Rockstar, and this is Rockstar Pure Zero. Punched is the flavor. Wow. And that really burns on my tongue in the back where I bit it an hour ago. Anyway, so these same people that said major labels suck, record deals suck, they're angry because they're not famous, and then they tried mp3.com, then they tried MySpace, then they spent $20,000 or more and recorded a new CD, and they pressed it at disc makers, and they were very proud that they could hold up. I'm looking for a prop. I don't have a prop. Anyway, people felt good when they could hold up a CD, a physical product that had a great cover on it, and for all intents and purposes looked exactly like the stuff that was for sale in the record stores. So they felt like they were on equal footing with the major label bands. Hey, I don't need you, major label. I was able to finance my own recording, and I made 1,000 CDs. But in the end, they ended up with 876 of their CDs sitting in the garage, still in boxes, collecting dust, and they couldn't understand why. They used the hottest engineer in town. They used the best studio in town. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, even to this day from Taxi members, that song should have been forwarded. Do you know who I used to engineer that? This guy's got 20 platinum records as an engineer. Doesn't make the song any better. They used a great producer. They had all this stuff going for them. Great cover art, everything. They had a big record release party. They sent out emails. They did everything that the music marketing gurus online said they should do, but nobody bought their CD. All that time, effort, and money down the tubes. Another epic failure. Then they used CD Baby to sell their CDs online, but nobody really bought theirs. So they sent a nasty letter to Derek Sivers, the original founder of CD Baby, complaining that CD Baby, and I know this for a fact because Derek and I are friends and we used to hang out a lot when he lived here. We'd go to dinner and he'd tell me he'd get letters from people complaining that CD Baby failed them because it did nothing to market their music. Well, CD Baby never said that they were going to market anybody's music. They were just a storefront where you could find a lot of great music from independent artists. So it wasn't CD Baby's responsibility to market anything. They were just the storefront. But in the eyes of that musician who loves, well, I can't say they love to fail, but that musician who's a serial re, a serial what, serial failureist, somebody who fails over and over again. Here they are, they're 2 decades in and they're still not able to get a break, and they would blame it on CD Baby because they didn't market their CD. They got their music on iTunes and dozens of other digital storefronts or retailers online. And every now and then, somebody from Germany or Denmark or Botswana or Iceland or wherever would buy one of their CDs or download some of their songs. They'd get excited. And I think they had a right to be. It's pretty cool if somebody on the other side of the world downloads your music and maybe you get a nice email from them. But in truth, the numbers didn't really add up. Okay, so 12 people bought your CD last month, or 38 people downloaded your song from all these different countries. It's good, it's validating, it's certainly better than nothing happening, but they felt like, in the end, they were a failure again. Let's see, I got ahead of myself. But in the end, they didn't make anything close to their investment back. Drives me crazy, by the way, when people say, "Oh, you joined Taxi for $300. Did you make your money back in the first year?" That's how they judge Taxi. Anyway, in the end, they would blame iTunes for catering to the big major label acts, same major labels they would have passed on if they'd ever been offered a deal. Then everybody ran to Reverb Nation and just about every other music promotion-related website out there. But nothing proved to be the magic bullet. And one by one, each of those sites was labeled, as a ripoff in the eyes of these angry, failed musicians. Then, as we all know, everybody went to Facebook. Hundreds of millions of people go there, I think, every day, certainly every week. And musicians posted photos and videos of themselves in the studio. Pretty cool. That's good social media marketing. Involve the people that are your friends online in your life. Sure, why not? Show them, studio footage. That's always pretty interesting. They posted about their upcoming shows. Definitely the right thing to do. They would post a new song when it came out. They would use that as bait to get people to buy their other songs. But very few, if any, did. They begged people to come to their shows, and some of their best friends and family members would, but not enough to get the club to book them again for another show, and certainly not enough to make any money or enough money to support themselves with their music. So in the end, Facebook was an epic fail. Maybe they didn't call it a ripoff, but they blamed Facebook. Facebook didn't deliver on its promise to make me famous. It was everybody along the line and everything's fault along the line and every one of those steps I just talked about. But that angry person that I'm talking about, that angry failed musician, and it really irks me when that angry failed musician is also that guy or that woman who is the influencer, whether it's in their online circle or, in the flesh in their town or in their part of town. They're angry, they've failed, and they're mad at everybody and everything, and they blame everybody and everything. But now they're spreading their hate-filled message of failure, telling every musician who will listen that everybody and every company out there is just trying to rip them off. And if they use them, they're destined for failure too. They say the same thing about Taxi. How many negative posts have we all seen about Taxi online? It's always the same old story. Taxi failed to get me a deal. I used them for a year but didn't make my $300 back. But in the end, the real reason those angry, failed musicians blame everybody else for their failure is that they never really want to blame themselves. I get it. It's tough. It takes a very strong person with a lot of integrity to accept the responsibility for his or her own failures. It's easy to accept the responsibility when we're successful, but it's hard to say, how many people have you ever seen post this online? I tried Taxi, I tried MySpace, I tried Facebook, I tried Twitter, I tried YouTube, I tried MP3.com, CD Baby, iTunes, and just about every other music promotion site out there, and none of them worked for me because, number one, my music wasn't better than the best that was out there. And number two, I didn't try long enough or hard enough. How many people have you ever heard say that? Very few. I won't say it's none. I won't say it's impossible that you'll hear that. But let's face it, most people, they'll blame everything down to the microphone they use to record the vocal. They'll blame the engineer. They'll blame the producer. They'll blame their bandmates. They'll blame family members for not giving them enough money when they needed money to record the album. They'll blame all those aforementioned companies. But rarely will you hear them blame themselves and say, my music wasn't better than the best out there, because that's how good it has to be for that super big, high level of success we're talking about that they often still live in the land of, which is success is defined as I got a record deal, I sold 1 million records, I'm wealthy, I have a big house, I'm on Cribs on MTV, and I fly around on a private jet and go to dinner with the Kardashians. A lot of people still hold on to that as the image and the model of success, but they haven't come to the realization that to get that kind of success, more often than not, again, I'm speaking in generalizations, and of course there are always exceptions to every rule, but most of the people who do enjoy that kind of success have great music. Something about what they're doing is resonating with a broad spectrum of the public, okay? We may not like it, I may not like it, you may not like it, but somebody out there likes it, and a lot of somebodies out there seem to like what they do, because as much as people want to believe that Radio Payola creates hits, it doesn't. At best, Payola gets exposure for something to try and gain the traction so it can become a hit, but you can't force the people, even by repetitive plays, to accept crap. They may grow to love something that is good, that they only grew to love because of multiple exposures, but let's face it, something that really sucks or isn't up to the level of being better than the best that's out there, public's not going to listen to it very long, whether the radio stations spin it a lot or not. And eventually the radio stations won't keep spinning it because they will lose audience. And if they lose audience, then they get less money for advertising. If they get less money for advertising, they go out of business. So radio stations want to play great music. You will also not hear people say the second thing I referred to, which was, I didn't try long enough or hard enough. Some people will say, I just heard a guy a month ago. He actually was in a room with me and he said, I've been doing this for 3 decades and I've failed, I'm broke. How hard was he really working at it? Can you really try to succeed at something for 3 decades and fail? Really? Obviously something he was doing, probably, what did they say, the definition of insanity is repeating the same mistake over and over. Maybe the guy was insane, I don't know, but I always love to refer to Tiger Woods in golf. I don't think that Tiger Woods could have made the same bad shot or had the same bad swing every day for 8, 10, 12 hours a day for 30 years and end up with a bad result. No, he was constantly improving every day. He was listening to his coach. He was watching videos of himself. He was trying other coaches. He would go to clinics. He would do anything he could to improve his swing, which ultimately improved his game. So not only did he work at it long enough, but he worked at it hard enough. In other words, ultimately, we are all responsible for our own successes and our own failures. And if you've not been successful with your music yet, please do not listen to the grumpy, failed musicians. Don't take advice from people who have narrowly defined what success is and then blamed everybody else for their failure. If you follow losers, you're only going to learn how to be a loser. Instead, follow those who've defined success on their own terms and recognize that success comes in increments. a little bit at a time, and in ladders, just like a baby. They got to crawl before they walk, walk before they run. Those are the people that you want to model, the people that have set achievable goals, have a realistic expectation of what success is for them. And by the way, that definition can change over time. You reach one level of success, you can certainly then shoot for another level. Maybe the ultimate goal is to become a rock star and get rich and fly around in a private jet, but maybe you're smart enough to realize that step number one would be to write great songs. And isn't that the essence of every bit of success in the industry? It all comes down in the end to writing great songs and doing a great job of performing them. You could do everything else. Everything else. It drives me nuts when I see people that are doing all these, marketing things online using Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and blah, 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 blah. But they're promoting music that's mediocre at best. Why don't they spend the same amount of time on learning how to write songs that people can't get enough of? So now I'd like to read you the letter I got late last week that's largely responsible for inspiring the show today. It's from Matt Vandero, his handwritten note, which, by the way, the art of the handwritten note, long forgotten. So Matt, kudos to you, dude, for the handwritten note. And the handwritten note says, I just want to send you this thank you card and a letter to keep you posted on all the amazing things that have happened to me as a result of Taxi. You and your company have truly been life-changing to me. As the placements are now rolling in regularly, the royalty checks are getting sweeter, and libraries are regularly seeking music from me. What a dream come true. Matt. Aw. Does it get any better than that? Check it out, by the way. Matt's got stationery with a V on it. And I like that. Show you a prop. I've got cards with a cab on them. I'm a man, or you're a man after my own heart, or vice versa, Matt. Anyway, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to write a handwritten note. And here's the letter that I got from Matt, which he wrote on March 27th of this year. And by the way, Matt lives in Boise, Idaho. I love Idaho. It's a beautiful state. The people are straight up, quite normal. So Matt addressed this to Michael Lasco and the whole gang at Taxi. Hey, Michael, I know how much you like to hear about the successes of your members, and I know we musicians can be rather lax in getting these stories to you. Funny thing, we call our families and friends, send out emails, and call up other musicians to toot our own horns, but we rarely extend thanks to the person who really paved the way for these things to happen, and that person is you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Matt. Michael, Taxi has been a complete game changer, actually a total life changer for me. You may recall from my Taxi interview last summer, we featured Matt in the passenger profile section of our newsletter. Taxi interview last summer that I had initially taken the unwise songwriter's approach to music making and taxi pitching, where I would write a handful of tunes and then hire musicians and produce the music at a professional studio. The result of those massive undertakings was about $30,000 worth of music. And then he says parenthetically, yeah, you read that right. And 3 CDs with no real income from it except the occasional CD sale, which would bring me $5 to $10 per disc. Not exactly a stellar business plan. I can't imagine the guys from Shark Tank being impressed by my approach. But I was young, well, younger anyway, and I had a good job selling expensive advertising at a newspaper, which gave me a large disposable income, which I can't talk because of the tongue, frivolously disposed of by financing failed music productions that went nowhere except to my friends who would always want a free copy because $10 was just too much for them to part with. Is that amazing? $10, can't even pry that out of your friends. They want a free copy, but that's what friends are for. Give me a free copy of something you just spent 30 grand making. I was a frustrated Taxi member that never got forwards and was toying with the idea of quitting Taxi. I thought, this will never work for me. I just better settle into the corporate life, buy some new ties. I got a new tie. and maybe get a proper haircut so I can sell even more of these ads and maybe even fast track myself to management. Until the Road Rally in 2011, Road Rally, for those of you who are watching this show for the first time or seeing the archive, the Road Rally is our annual convention. It's free for every taxi member and a guest. Until the Road Rally in 2011, where I met a few amazing songwriters and composers. James Koshin was one of the first guys to open my eyes to the right way to go about being a taxi member. Thank you, James Koshin. When I came home from that rally, I was filled with ambition and determined to write music specifically for TV shows, via taxi listings, of course, rather than write songs in advance and hope the right opportunity would come knocking. Luckily, I was naive and jumped right in without knowing I had two major problems to overcome. Number one, I didn't know what a cue was, nor how to write them, and number two, I'd never recorded anything myself before. So as of January 2012, I found myself entering the cue composing game with no experience, no knowledge, and no hope. Thankfully, I had no fear of failure either. I love that. Let me spare you the in-between stuff and fast forward to now, March 2015, just a mere 3 years after I got into this aspect of the business. I just signed my 16th contract, and that was in red, bold red. I just signed my 16th contract with a music library and sent them tunes today. This one, my 16th deal, was the first one that I actively sought out myself. All the other 15 deals that came to me, either as a result of taxi forwards, the magic of the road rally, or through connections made via the taxi forums. Within these 16 libraries, I now have close to 700 signed songs scattered amongst them. 700 songs. I'm assuming Matt means cues as well. Cues being short instrumental pieces. One of these companies, which I'm not going to mention the name of and save them a million phone calls, one of these companies has been so amazing to be part of that I want to highlight them specifically in this letter, as I'm sure you'd appreciate how hard some of these libraries work on behalf of their composers. The library owner, whose name I'm leaving out here, originally contacted me after Taxi forwarded a suspense slash tension cue last summer. I need water. Continuing on. Originally contacted me after Taxi forwarded a suspense tension cue last summer. The owner liked that track and wanted others for a show called Killer Kids on Lifetime. Now, I'm not the type of person to let an opportunity pass me by, so I hunkered down and blasted out about 40 horror slash suspense cues and sent the owner big batches of music every week. That person would occasionally send me emails that she'd received from the music supervisor saying things like, "We really like this Vandero guy's music, get more," which bolstered my spirits and kept me writing. Pretty awesome that the library owner was forwarding emails to you about what the supervisor said about your music. Yes, that would bolster anybody's confidence. Lo and behold, the first episode of the current season used 14 of my cues, and the second episode used 10. I was flying so high you couldn't have smacked the smile off my face with a roundhouse ninja kick. And that show has never stopped using my tunes. At last count, and the library owner sends him cue sheets before the show's even run, my music has been placed over 100 times on just that one show, and this season has only been running for 3 months. And then, to make things even sweeter, she asked me for some pop tracks for a new show on A&E. I sent her 2 tracks just to get started, and those 2 tracks have now been on every single episode, including the pilot. So that library and the owner have been a tremendous boost to my career. But so have many others. There's another library owner mentioned. It continues to get me placements on a bunch of MTV shows like True Life, The Challenge, Fantasy Factory. Just recently offered Matt a special opportunity to write and sell music to a new MTV production in which they split the upfront per track payment. And just the other day, that library wrote me an email saying that MTV is buying 9 of the tracks that I sent them, which will mark my first 4-figure upfront paycheck, $1,125, but who's counting? Haha. The last piece of success I want to mention to you is I just found out that one of my cues was used on an NFL game back in December, the 49ers versus the Chargers. Talk about exciting. It is if you're a sports fan, Matt. I've had my football gene cut out of me by my wife and kids. And besides, I was a Dolphin fan, so why bother? So, from no experience and no knowledge and no clue to having written close to 800 tracks and signed about 90% of them to 16 different libraries and cracking the 100 placement mark in 3 years, I'd like to think that I'm at least moving in the right direction. Talk about incremental success, right? He likes to think of himself as moving in the right direction. But you know what? I still think I can get faster and better. And I still consider myself a newbie. And I still miss the mark and make mistakes. Sometimes, okay, lots of times, and get returned on taxi listings. But I'm doing this. I'm actually doing it, and I'm getting paid for it. And it really boils down to this, Michael. The entire path, this budding career of mine, my passion, what my girlfriend calls the only thing I ever do, is all a direct result of Taxi. I could go on and on with praise for you and your company, but I'll leave the mushy stuff out. I think you left the mushy stuff in already, Matt. Just know that I'm eternally grateful for what you've done with Taxi and providing your members with opportunities to change their futures and change their lives from the bottom of my heart, Matt Vandero. So there you go. There's a guy who's an influencer that's not a failure. He's done all the right stuff. If you want to model somebody, model that guy. Don't model somebody who's been trying this for 30 years and keeps repeating the same mistakes over and over. Why would you want to model somebody who almost seems to embrace failure? Because it's going to cause you to fail because they give you an easy way out. They give you excuses. They give you a bad business model, a bad music model, a bad everything model to follow. Follow a guy like Matt. And there are a lot of guys like Matt, not to take anything at all away from him, but he is part of a group of Taxi members who hang out on the forum regularly, who come to the road rally, who are in the chat room on Taxi TV and rarely miss an episode. And they've synthesized all this information together. They've probably read Robin Frederick's book, Shortcuts of Songwriting for Film and TV. They've probably read Robin Frederick's book, Shortcuts to Hit Songwriting. They've probably read John Brahaney's book. They've probably read Jason Bloom's book. They just do all the right stuff, and they understand that you got to take, you got to crawl, then take baby steps, then fully walk, and then run, and that success comes in increments. So there you go. That's the show for today. What did I say? Oh. And if Matt's letter inspires you to define what success looks like for you at this time in your life, then please remember this. Inspiration only creates success when it's backed up by action. You can go to the road rally and become inspired and get home and do all kinds of writing for a week or two and then lose your oomph. You could watch this show and get inspired, and then tomorrow wake up and get distracted by your day-to-day routine and forget to work on your music. There's so many things in life that distract us, but you know what? Again, going back to what I said at the beginning of the show, it's not an all or nothing at all proposition. Success isn't way up there and defined as I've made $1 million and fly around in a private jet. So what if you can only spend an hour or two a day on your music, 3, 4, 5 days a week? We've got Taxi members that are getting placements that are doing that little. They may not be generating a lot of music or getting a lot of placements, but they have had incremental success. And over time, they get faster, they get better, and they will have more success. And at some point, hopefully for them, if that's what they want to do, they'll be able to get good enough, fast enough, and have enough placements that they'll be able to walk away from their day job that they may not love and may be the main thing preventing them from doing music full time. So I hope that's the case for them. All right, let's do a few minutes worth of questions if you have any, and then I'm going to wrap up because I've got to do something before I walk out of here tonight. So there you go. Thank you again, Matt, for inspiring today's show. Mojo Bone very profoundly says fear of success is a bigger obstacle than fear of failure. That's true. Um, yes, definitely post your success stories in the success stories part of the forum. You can also send, please send emails to memberdeals@taxi.com. Or member services at taxi.com. All that stuff will eventually filter to my desk, and we'd love to feature you in the newsletter. Oh, here's Oh, okay. That was in Matt's letter about that one library getting so much of his stuff placed in that one show. And remember, I think it was last week's show, I read off that list from yet another library that had all kinds of great placements in it. There's so much stuff out there that we don't hear about. And now that I'm bitching and whining a little bit more about it, we're starting to hear more. So keep them coming. We love to hear about this stuff. Um, Amanda says, I agree, Matt V. I'm only starting out. Taxi has changed my life. Good for you, Amanda. Uh, Robbie Hancock says, it's all you. No, you know what? It's not all me. Thank you for the compliment. I really do appreciate it, Robbie. But it's not all me. It's the members, it's the staff, it's the screeners. It's it's way bigger than me. All I did was kind of make the snowball at the top of the hill, and I keep pushing it down the hill, and it's gotten bigger on its own. Um, Here's a great question, Michael. Why don't I see a lot of Latin music placements on Taxi? I write in Spanish too, and I'd love to have more shots at this genre from Taxi. Kind of new around here, and I'm loving it. I think um, he meant. Anyway, there's kind of a chicken and egg thing going on with the Latin stuff. We don't have enough members making great Latin music that when we run Latin listings that we get enough stuff where we find good stuff and are able to forward it. So we're a little afraid sometimes when we run when we know when we run listings looking for Latin music, we're going to get very few submissions and very few great submissions. There's an entire market out there that I would love to be doing a lot more work with, and frankly, they would love to use us. But I feel like I need 300 people who do Latin music to join Taxi so that there's kind of a base to work from. So we never forget about that. We certainly don't turn down those Latin listings. We enjoy them when we see them, but we also know that we're going to get very few submissions. Mary Band says, Taxi is a family, even if you're still on the outside. Um, all right, you know what? I see several of you guys talking about the Latin listings. Um, you have a solemn promise from me that I'm going to mandate that the staff starts reaching out to more and more Latin networks and Latin production companies. Let's get some Latin listings in. Um, Bob Lagrasso wants to know how soon before a member should go to Taxi Dispatch. Taxi Dispatch is an upgrade level of Taxi that we don't recommend for like new members, certainly not like people who are in their first 6 months or so. The short version is it's 43 cents a day. It's prorated according to how many days are left on your membership for that year. And it's primarily the people who join and upgrade to Taxi Dispatch are people who do film and TV related stuff, and almost exclusively instrumental tracks and cues. Every now and then we'll get listings where they're looking for songs, but I would say probably 75 to 90% of the listings are instrumental, and they're film and TV related. And generally speaking, we like people to join Dispatch that are more seasoned members, because we don't want people to pay for an upgrade on something that they may not be adept enough at how Taxi works. If you're getting forwards and you're getting some deal offers and have signed some deals with libraries, and instrumental stuff for film and TV is what you do, then Dispatch might be a good idea for you. If you're a singer-songwriter and you're trying to get a record deal or get the occasional song placed in a TV show, it might not be such a good thing for you. Mojo Bone says, when you get fast at turning tracks around is when you should do dispatch. And it's true. Dispatch was originally created to service music supervisors who were calling us wanting fast turnaround stuff all the time. Well, the industry has really morphed into almost everybody wants stuff quickly now. So dispatch has morphed into libraries trying to fill the gaps. Let's say a library has a bunch of orchestral stuff, but it's dated sounding orchestral. It's not like super hip stuff that you would hear in a film trailer that's going to be like an electro orchestral hybrid or a rock orchestral hybrid. So they've come to the realization they need a bunch of that stuff, so they run dispatch listings, because sometimes they get a request for something and they realize they have nothing or nothing great to pitch. They'll run a dispatch listing trying to beef up that genre in their catalog before they pitch for it. Michael, why not mention the prorated dispatch angle if you join later? Yeah, I did, but I'll bring it up again. Andy Gabrish says, it's prorated, it's 43 cents a day. If you're 9 months into your membership, give it a shot for the last 90 days of your first year. Give it I hate to sound corny, but give it a test drive. 43 cents a day. Where's my calculator? 43 cents a day times 90 days is a whopping $38.70. So should you try it for the last quarter of your first year? Sure, why not? Scott Hansen wants to know, how's the gefilte fish out there in LA? I got to tell you, Scott, as long as we're on the subject of Passover and gefilte fish, generally speaking, most people don't like gefilte fish. It's carp and whitefish, and they put it in a grinder and make this stuff that's ground up, and then they make it into these little football-shaped things that are about that big, and they stuff them all in a jar, and they put this gelatinous soupy crap on top of it, and that's what most people serve for gefilte fish. Some people actually like the gelatinous ooze. It is like primordial ooze on top of the fish. I'm not one of those people. Some people say it adds flavor. My wife, on the other hand, buys gefilte fish. If you look in the freezer section of your grocery store, probably somewhere near the frozen shrimp or maybe the frozen fish fillets or something, sometimes you'll find these logs of gefilte fish that are roughly 8 inches long by 3 inches around. And my wife takes one of those and puts it into like a bread loaf pan and pours a little sweet wine like Manischewitz, the super sweet stuff that tastes like cough syrup or maybe a sweet white wine, pours that on top, grates some onions on top, and puts it in the oven at 350 till it gets brown and a little crispy on the top, and then takes it out, drains off the liquid from the bottom and serves it. And every time people eat over at our house and they have my wife's gefilte fish, they rave about it. So there you go. Now you know more than music from watching Taxi TV. Anyway, all right. There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please don't listen to grumpy old failed people and take their advice. They've failed for a reason, and I'm not judging them. I'm just saying don't follow them. Follow the Matt Vanderboes of the world. Those are the people who set the bar and show you the path. Those are the people I would want to model my career after. And congratulations to you, Matt. Thank you again for sending the handwritten note and the nice long letter. I really, really appreciate it. There you go, guys. Have a great night, a great week. Hope you all had a great Easter and a happy Passover. And we will see you next week for another exciting episode of Taxi TV. Bye-bye. Woo-hoo!